Picture this. A woman stands in the pouring rain, clutching a 2-day-old baby against her chest. Her hospital pajamas are soaked through. Her C-section stitches are bleeding. In her pocket, she has exactly $500 and a broken heart. 30 minutes ago, her husband looked her in the eye and said 5 words that would haunt him forever. "Get out, we are done." He watched her walk into the storm with his own newborn son, then closed the door and poured himself a drink. His mistress was already wearing the wife's bathrobe. He thought he was throwing away garbage. He thought he was trading up. He thought he would never see her again. But here is what he did not know. In exactly 24 hours, that shivering homeless woman would become the sole owner of a $1.4 billion empire. The same empire that owns the company where he works. The same building where he sits in his little cubicle, dreaming of promotions he will never get. He kicked out his wife. He woke up with his boss, and she was just getting started. This is not a fairy tale. This is a revenge story. And by the end, you will understand why the people who underestimate you are making the biggest mistake of their lives. Stay with me. This one is going to hurt in the best way possible. Before we dive in, let me tell you why this story matters. This is not just entertainment. This is a blueprint, a reminder that your lowest moment does not define your future, that the people who throw you away often hand you the keys to everything they ever wanted, and that dignity, patience, and strategic thinking will always defeat cruelty and arrogance. If you have ever been underestimated, dismissed, or discarded by someone who thought you were worthless, this story is for you. Now let us begin. 3 months from now, I would stand in a boardroom worth more than his entire life. I would watch the color drain from his face as he realized the woman he threw away had become the woman who owned everything he ever wanted. But tonight I was bleeding through my C-section stitches, holding my 2-day-old son, watching my husband hand me $500 and tell me to disappear. He thought he was throwing away garbage. He had no idea he was throwing away his future. My name is Brooklyn Hayes, and this is the story of how I went from homeless to billionaire in 90 days, and how I made the man who betrayed me pay for every single tear. The rain in Seattle did not just fall that Tuesday evening. It hammered against the windshield of the Uber like gravel thrown against tin. I sat in the back seat, my body still swollen from pregnancy, my C-section incision pulling tight with every bump in the road. The pain was constant, a dull fire across my lower abdomen that flared with each pothole. But the physical pain was nothing compared to the knot of dread tightening in my stomach. I had called Garrett 3 times from the hospital lobby. No answer. I had texted him that I was coming home with baby Noah. No reply. My husband of 4 years, the Piet who had promised to love and cherish me until death do us part, could not be bothered to respond to a single message on the day I brought his son home. The Uber pulled up to our rented bungalow on Maple Street. I thanked the driver and carefully lifted Noah's car seat, wincing as the movement sent a sharp jolt through my stitches. The rain soaked through my thin hospital pajamas within seconds. I pushed the front door open with my hip, shaking water from my hair. "Garrett," I called out, my voice raspy from exhaustion. "Garrett, we are home." He slept the whole way. The living room was strangely uncluttered. That was the first thing I noticed. The pile of mail that usually sat on the console table was gone. The throw blankets were folded with military precision. My grandmother's quilt, the one she had made by hand before she passed, was missing from the couch. And then I saw the family photos on the wall. 3 of them had been rearranged. I looked closer and felt my blood run cold. I had been cropped out of each one. Something was very wrong. I walked further into the house, still carrying Noah in his car seat. That is when I saw the suitcases. 3 large black suitcases stood near the hallway like soldiers waiting for orders. My suitcases. Garrett was sitting in his leather recliner, a glass of amber liquid in his hand. He was not looking at me. He was staring at the blank television screen, wearing his good suit. The Navy Brooks Brothers one he usually saved for important presentations at Wellington Logistics. "Garrett," I whispered, a cold flush rising on my neck. "Are we going somewhere?" He finally turned. His face was unreadable, a mask of smooth indifference that was more terrifying than anger would have been. "Sit down, Brooklyn," he said, his voice calm in a way that made my skin crawl. "I just had surgery," I replied. "I have been sitting for an hour in an Uber. Why are you dressed up?" He stood slowly, took a sip of his drink, and set the glass down on a coaster with deliberate precision. "Because I have somewhere to be," Garrett said, "and you do not live here anymore." I blinked, certain I had misheard him. I looked down at Noah, sleeping peacefully in his carrier, and then back at my husband. "That is funny," I said, forcing a laugh that sounded hollow even to my own ears. "That is really funny, Garrett. Is this a postpartum prank? Did your idiot brother put you up to this?" A female voice answered from the kitchen. "It is not a joke, Brooklyn." I froze. The kitchen door swung open and a woman walked out. I knew her. Megan Cross. She was the paralegal at a firm that did contract work with Garrett's company. She was 26, ambitious, and currently wearing my dead grandmother's robe, the robe I had received as a gift at my bridal shower. Something inside me cracked. "Garrett," I said slowly, "what is she doing here?" "She lives here now," Garrett replied, walking over to stand beside Megan. He did not put his arm around her. He just stood there, presenting a united front. "I have been trying to find the right time to tell you, but there never is a right time. I am not happy, Brooklyn. I have not been happy for a long time." The words hit me like physical blows. "You are leaving me?" I gasped, clutching the handle of the car seat so hard my knuckles turned white. "Now, I just gave birth to your son. I am still bleeding from the surgery." "That is exactly why," Garrett snapped, his calm facade cracking for just a second. "Look at you, Brooklyn. You are a mess. You have no ambition. You are content living paycheck to paycheck, clipping coupons for groceries. I am rising at Wellington Logistics. I need a partner who fits the image of a VP. Megan understands the corporate world. You just want to be a mom." I stared at him in disbelief. "I supported you while you got your MBA," I said, my voice rising. "I worked double shifts at the diner so you could study. I put my nursing degree on hold. I have emails, Garrett. I have bank statements showing every dollar I contributed to your student loans." Garrett checked his watch as if I were wasting his valuable time. "And I have a lawyer who costs $400 an hour," he said coldly. "How long can you afford to fight?" The answer hung between us, unspoken but deafening. I could not afford to fight at all. "This is not a debate, Brooklyn," Garrett continued. "I paid the rent on this place through the end of the month, but the landlord knows the lease is transferring to my name only starting tomorrow. You need to leave." Now, I looked at the rain still hammering against the windows. "It is pouring," I said, my voice breaking. "I have nowhere to go. My parents are gone. I have a newborn baby, Garrett, your son." Garrett glanced at Noah's car seat, his expression tightening with something that might have been guilt, but quickly hardened into indifference. "I will send you a check for child support once the lawyers draft the papers," he said. "But right now, I cannot have a crying baby here. I have a meeting with the regional director in the morning. I need sleep." He picked up the nearest suitcase, my suitcase, and dragged it to the front door, opening it to the storm outside. The wind howled, spraying rain into the hallway. "Garrett, please," I begged, tears streaming down my face. "Just let me stay in the guest room for a week, just until I can find a place. Do not do this to Noah." Megan walked forward, her heels clicking on the hardwood floor. She crouched down, not to help, but to look me directly in the eye. "Do not make this pathetic, Brooklyn," she said. "Have some dignity. He does not want you." Garrett grabbed me by the arm, hauling me toward the door. The movement sent fire through my incision. "Get out, Brooklyn," he said, "before I call the police and have you removed for trespassing." He shoved the other two suitcases onto the porch. I stumbled backward, instinctively curling my body around Noah's car seat to protect him from the rain. "Here," Garrett said, tossing a thick envelope onto the wet concrete at my feet. "That is $500. Should get you a motel for a few nights." He looked at me one last time, and I searched his face for any trace of the man I had married, the man who had promised to love me forever, the man I had given up my dreams to support. There was nothing there, just cold, empty ambition. "Do not come back," he said. The door slammed shut. The sound echoed like a gunshot in the darkness. I stood alone on the porch, the rain instantly soaking through my clothes. Inside Noah's car seat, my 2-day-old son woke up and began to wail, and I realized with horrifying clarity that I had absolutely nowhere to go. I do not remember walking to the bus stop. The next hour existed only as fragments. Headlights cutting through the rain, the rhythmic sobbing of my newborn son, the weight of 3 soaking wet suitcases that I somehow managed to drag through the dark streets of Seattle. I sat on the metal bench under the flimsy plastic shelter, shivering so violently that my teeth chattered. My hospital pajamas were completely soaked through. The envelope of money, the $500 that was supposed to buy my silence and my disappearance, was stuffed into my bra. It was the only safe place I could think of. Noah screamed in his car seat beside me. I picked him up, pressing him against my chest, trying to shield him from the cold with my own body heat. But my body had no heat left to give. Shh, I whispered, rocking him gently. It is okay, baby. Mommy is here. Mommy is going to fix this. But I did not know how. I checked my phone. 14% battery. The cold was draining it faster than usual. I scrolled through my contacts, searching desperately for anyone who might help. My mother had passed away 2 years ago after a long battle with cancer. My father had left when I was a toddler. I did not even know his name, only that he was some kind of businessman who wanted nothing to do with us. My sister Dana. I tried her number first. The number you are trying to reach has been disconnected. My stomach dropped. Dana had changed her number 6 months ago after marrying a man who did not like me. He had systematically isolated her from the family. She never gave me the new one. I tried the local women's shelter next. A weary voice answered on the third ring. Seattle Women's Crisis Center. How can I help you? Hi, I said, my voice cracking. I need a place to stay tonight. I have a newborn baby and my husband just kicked us out and I do not have anywhere to go. There was a pause on the other end. I am so sorry, honey, the woman said, and I could hear genuine sympathy in her voice. We are at capacity tonight. The storm brought everyone in. We usually have openings after 8 in the morning. Can you try calling back then? I looked at Noah, who was still crying against my chest. I looked at the rain that showed no signs of stopping. Okay, I said quietly. Thank you. I hung up and sat there for a moment, fighting the urge to scream. Then I remembered Patricia Warren. We had been friends in nursing school before I dropped out to support Garrett's career. She had reached out a few times over the years, but Garrett had always found reasons why I should not see her. He said she was a bad influence. He said she was negative. He said her husband was creepy. Now I understood. He had been isolating me, cutting me off from everyone who might have supported me. I dialed Patricia's number. Hello, Patricia. It is Brooklyn Hayes. I know it has been a long time, but I really need help. Garrett kicked me out and I have nowhere to go, and I have the baby and it is raining and I need somewhere to stay tonight. Just one night. There was a sharp intake of breath on the other end. Oh my God, Brooklyn, Patricia said. Of course you can stay here. Where are you? I will come get you right now. Hope. For the first time since the door slammed in my face, I felt hope. Then I heard a male voice in the background. Patricia's husband. Who is that? Is that Brooklyn? Tell her no. I am not getting involved in her drama. Tell her to call someone else. Patricia's voice changed. The warmth drained out of it. I am so sorry, she said quietly. I cannot. I am so sorry. Click. The line went dead. I stared at the phone in my hand, watching the battery percentage drop from 12 to 11. The rain continued to fall. Noah continued to cry. My therapist had once told me something that I thought about often in the months that followed. She said that when something feels wrong in your home, trust your gut. Your subconscious has already cataloged 100 details your conscious mind missed. I should have listened. I should have seen the signs. The late nights at work, the password changes on his phone, the way he started criticizing everything I did, the way he made me feel small and worthless and dependent. But I had loved him, and love, I was learning, could blind you to the most obvious truths. I checked my banking app with trembling fingers. Balance? $67.43. Garrett had drained the joint savings account, the account that held the money I had saved from years of double shifts at the diner, the account that was supposed to be our emergency fund. He had left me with nothing. I sat there on that cold metal bench holding my crying son, and I considered my options. I could call 911. I could explain the situation. They would probably take me to a hospital. And then what? Child Protective Services would get involved. They would see a homeless mother with no income and a newborn baby. They might take Noah away from me. The thought was unbearable. I would rather die than lose my son. I was about to make a decision I would later describe as the lowest moment of my life. I was about to call 911 and surrender Noah to the authorities because I could not keep him safe on my own. I had already dialed 911 when a car pulled up in front of the bus stop. Not a bus, a sleek black town car with tinted windows. It looked out of place in this neighborhood, gleaming under the streetlights like something from another world. I tensed, pulling Noah closer to my chest. Every true crime podcast I had ever listened to flashed through my mind. Vulnerable woman, dark night, strange car. I was about to run when the rear window rolled down with a soft
You
electric
ready
hum.
for Christmas?
Mrs. Hayes? A voice called out.
Santa
Brooklyn
Claus will
Hayes?
come and
Maiden
get
name
you
Collins?
presents.
I froze. I had not used my maiden name in 4 years. Who is asking? I said, trying to keep my voice steady. The car door went open and a man stepped out. He did not seem to care about the rain. He was an older black gentleman, perhaps in his mid-60s, wearing an immaculate charcoal suit and holding a large umbrella. He walked toward me with a purposeful stride, his posture rigid and respectful. "My name is Walter Ashford," the man said, extending the umbrella to cover me and Noah. "I am the senior attorney for the estate of Dominic Vale. I have been looking for you for 3 days." I stared at him blankly. "Dominic Vale," I repeated. "The tech billionaire I do not understand." "I think you have the wrong person." "I do not," Walter said softly. He looked at my suitcases, then at my crying baby, and finally at the devastation on my face. His professional mask softened into what appeared to be genuine sympathy. "Dominic Vale passed away 3 days ago in Zurich. He
We're
was
at
your
your
father,
mindset.
Brooklyn."
I just
The
wanted you
world
to do it
tilted.
as a joke so your
"My
wedding don't
father?" I
look
whispered.
messy.
"No, my
It's
father
just
was a
weird to me
deadbeat
that
who
they
left
let
my
their
mom
lives
before I
go to
was born.
places that are messed
He
up
was
when
not a
it's innocent talk
billionaire.
about
He
some.
was a complicated man," Walter corrected gently. "He made many mistakes. Leaving your mother was the biggest one, but he kept tabs on you. He knew you married Garrett. He knew you were pregnant." Walter paused, looking toward the direction of the house I had just been kicked out of. "He also knew your husband was unsatisfactory." I let out a bitter, hysterical laugh that startled Noah and made him cry harder. "Unsatisfactory," I repeated.
Anyway,
"That is
how's the
one word
bills
for it."
coming along?
Walter reached into his pocket and pulled out a business card. Heavy cardstock. Embossed with gold lettering. "Mrs. Hayes," he said,
It
"I
looks
understand you
amazing.
have no reason to trust me,
Yeah, it's pretty
so I
cool.
will give you options. This card has 3 numbers on it. The first is my direct line. The second is the personal number of Judge Patricia Coleman of the King County Family Court. She can verify my identity and the legitimacy of this matter. The third is the Four Seasons downtown. There is a room reserved in your name. Paid for, no strings attached." He pressed the card into my hand. "You can go there, lock the door, and never speak to me again if you choose," Walter continued. "But if you would like to know why your biological father left you controlling interest in a $1.4 billion corporation, I will be in the lobby until midnight." He turned and walked back to the car. "Wait," I called out. "Why now? Why tonight? Why not a week ago or a month ago?" Walter paused at the car
How many
door.
pieces are in
"The
the
will
will?
was sealed until certain conditions were met," he said. "Your father wanted to ensure you were free of certain entanglements before you learned the truth. He was waiting for you to leave your husband on your own."
3,955.
Walter glanced at my suitcases on the wet pavement. "It appears Mr. Hayes made that decision for you." He got into the car and closed the door. The window rolled back up. I stood there in the rain, holding my son and a business card, watching the
This
black town
vehicle is
car drive
blank
away into
today.
the night. And for the
Looks
first time
awesome.
since
It
Garrett
really
had kicked
looks
me
like a
out,
Home Alone
I felt
house.
something other than
Yeah,
despair.
it's pretty
I felt
good. I did
curiosity.
well.
The Four Seasons in downtown Seattle
Yeah,
was the
say that
kind of
was
hotel I had only seen in movies. The lobby gleamed with marble floors and crystal chandeliers. Staff in crisp uniforms moved silently, their shoes clicking softly on the polished stone. The air smelled like fresh flowers and expensive perfume. I walked in wearing soaking wet hospital pajamas, carrying a crying newborn in a car seat and dragging 3 waterlogged suitcases behind me. I had never
Is
felt
it
more
open
out
up
of
to see
place
the
in my
inside of the
entire
house or is
life.
it just the
The
shell?
woman at the front desk
No,
did
the
not
whole
even
thing
blink.
opens up.
"Mrs. Hayes," she said, smiling warmly, "we have been
I'll
expecting
show
you.
you.
Your suite is ready."
Let me
She
show
handed me a
you
key card and
the
gestured
beautiful
to a
house
bellhop
of
who
King
immediately took
David.
my suitcases. "There is a
Let me
change of
show you.
clothes waiting for
No
you in the
way.
room," she continued,
Yep,
"and a
the whole
pediatric
thing
nurse who
opens
can
up.
examine your son whenever you are
That's
ready.
awesome.
Is there anything else you need?" I stared at her,
We
overwhelmed.
need to do more
Hot chocolate, I
lobsters the
heard myself
same way
say.
they did
If
this.
that is not too much trouble. Of course, she replied, as if I had asked for the most normal thing in the world. I will have it sent up immediately. The presidential suite was larger than the entire bungalow I had shared with Garrett. Floor-to-ceiling windows looked out over the Seattle skyline. A king-size bed dominated one room, while an elegant sitting area occupied another. Fresh flowers sat on every surface. A crib had been set up in the corner, complete with soft blankets and a mobile. Someone had prepared for my arrival. A young woman in medical scrubs was waiting in the sitting area. She introduced herself as a pediatric nurse from Seattle Children's Hospital and gently examined Noah while I changed into dry
All right,
clothes.
so
She checked his
How long
temperature,
has this
his
still taken
reflexes,
you?
his breathing.
we're doing it as an
He is
admin
perfect,
calendar,
she
so we're
said,
doing it all
handing him
in
back
4
to me,
days.
healthy and strong. You
But
are
we
doing a wonderful
decided
job,
last
Mama.
night
I started crying. I could not help it.
do
It was the first kind thing anyone had said to me in what felt like
bag
forever. The
23
nurse
and
left,
24
and I was
together.
alone with my son in this
So
impossibly
that's
luxurious
why
suite.
we're
A
doing
soft knock
4
at the door
days
announced the
back
arrival
to
of hot
back.
chocolate, brought by a room service attendant, along with a tray of pastries I had not requested but was too hungry to refuse. I sat on the velvet couch, feeding Noah a bottle and sipping my hot chocolate, and tried to make sense of what was happening. At 11:45, there was another knock. "Come in," I called out. Walter Ashford entered, looking exactly as he had at the bus stop, dry now but still wearing the same charcoal suit. He carried a leather briefcase and a tablet computer. "I trust you slept well," he said, though we both knew I had not slept at all. "I appreciate all of this," I replied, gesturing at the room, "but I need you to explain what is going on. From the beginning." Walter nodded and sat down across from me, setting his briefcase on the coffee table. "Dominic Vale was born in Oakland, California in 1952, he began. His father was a truck driver who owned a single delivery truck. When his father died, Dominic was 23 years old. He turned that one truck into a fleet. The fleet became a logistics company. The logistics company became a conglomerate. He opened the briefcase and withdrew a photograph. It showed a black man in his 60s, distinguished and powerful, with eyes that looked hauntingly familiar. By the time of his death,
I
Walter
ain't getting much
continued,
shine today
Dominic
because
Vale was worth
tonight, guess
approximately
what?
Bill,
$1.4 billion.
it looks so much like the
He
house.
owned real
They
estate
did a
across
perfect
3
job designing
continents,
it.
technology
Yeah,
patents,
the
majority
interior looks
stakes in
like the
several
house.
transportation firms. Walter paused, and he owned the parent company of Wellington Logistics, the firm where your husband works. I
I
felt the
got a
blood drain from my face.
castle.
"Wait," I said, "Garrett works for a
Did
company
you
that
get the
Dominic
calculator
Vale
out yet?
owned?"
I got
Dominic
an
owned the
anti
holding
glitch
company
yet.
that owned the holding company that owned
And it's
Wellington
not the
Logistics,
one that
Walter clarified.
the
Through a structure
Wellington
designed for
Machine owns, but
privacy,
I
no one
know
at
the one
Wellington
that
knew who
got
truly sat at the
Dracula,
top of the chain,
his wife,
including your husband.
Hold on, what?
I set down my hot chocolate,
ghosts,
my hands suddenly unsteady.
got all kinds
"Why
of
are you
shit.
telling me this?" "Because as of 3 days ago,"
Old
Is
Walter
school
it my
said,
go?
castle.
"you
Yeah,
inherited
but it's
everything."
old school castle.
He pulled more documents from the briefcase. Legal
And it's
papers
called
covered in dense
Foster.
text and signatures. Dominic had 2 legitimate sons, Grant and Cameron Vale, Walter
Monster
explained.
fighter.
They each received $50 million in shares in specific subsidiaries. But you,
Can I
Brooklyn,
see it
you
before you
received the
execute it?
controlling interest in
Yeah.
Vale Industries, 51% of the entire corporation, the family estate in the Cascade Mountains, and complete discretion over the future of the company. I stared at him. "That does not make any sense," I said. "He abandoned me. He abandoned my mother. Why would he leave me everything? Because he was a coward in love, but a genius in business," Walter replied. "He knew that Grant and Cameron were
Please
not
don't tell
worthy
me I have to wait
successors.
till next
They are
October to watch
entitled
you
and
build it.
reckless. They would destroy everything he built within a decade. He watched you from a distance your entire life, Brooklyn. He saw how you sacrificed for your husband,
No, we're gonna
how you
build
worked and
before then.
struggled and never complained. He believed you had inherited his determination, even if you did not know you had inherited anything at all." I looked at Noah,
We might.
You like
sleeping
this movie?
peacefully in my arms.
Subscribe here.
"You said
URL.
certain conditions had
Okay,
to be
cool.
met," I said slowly, "before I could learn about the inheritance." "What conditions?" Walter hesitated.
3,
"Your father was a paranoid man. He had investigators watching you for years. He knew about Garrett's affairs before you did. He knew the kind of man your husband truly was." "Affairs?" I repeated, my voice hollow. "Plural?" "At least 3 that we documented," Walter confirmed. For Megan Cross, I felt sick. How long had I been blind? How many lies had I believed? Dominic wanted to tell you the truth years ago, Walter continued. I advised against it. A woman who learns she has a billionaire father will never know if her husband loves her or her money. Dominic wanted you to have a genuine
I bought
marriage.
it from
He
a
was
friend.
waiting for you to leave Garrett on your own,
A friend of
or for
mine was
Garrett to
selling
reveal his true
this
nature.
monster
And
five
Garrett
stuff,
revealed his true nature, I so said bitterly,
and I've been
by
wanting to
kicking
buy
me
this
and his
fighter
newborn
stuff.
son into the
It
rain.
looks like one of my
Yes,
favorites,
Walter confirmed.
but they're
The
so
conditions of the
expensive.
will have been
You give me a
satisfied.
deal on it.
The inheritance is yours. He handed me the tablet computer. But first, your father wanted you to see this. The screen showed a video. I pressed play.
I did.
The face that appeared was the same one from the photograph. Dominic Vale. He looked frail, clearly filmed near the end of his illness, but his eyes were sharp and intense. Brooklyn, he said. His voice was deep, with a slight rasp. If you are watching this, I am gone. I have no excuse for my absence in your life. I built an empire, but I failed to build a family. I leave you my work, my burden, and my power. He leaned closer to the camera. But power must be wielded, not just held. You are married to a man named Garrett.
What
My
anger?
investigators tell me he is a small man with a big ego. If he is still by your side and treating you well, you may share this fortune with him. But if he has failed you, then use my legacy to crush him. Dominic's eyes seemed to bore into mine through the screen. Valerius blood does not suffer fools. Welcome to the game, my daughter. The video ended. I sat in silence for a long moment. So let me get this straight, I finally said.
But it was awful
The man who
loud.
abandoned me wants me to take over a billion-dollar company I know nothing about, and also destroy my
I
husband,
got my
who
earbuds
apparently
in.
works for me now. That is an accurate summary, Walter confirmed. Does the minibar have whiskey? It has everything. I looked at the bottle of formula on the table, then back at Walter. I'm going to need several minutes, I said, and probably something stronger than hot chocolate. Walter stood. Take all the time you need, Mrs. Hayes. But know this, the board of directors at Vale Industries is meeting in 3 weeks to discuss succession. They expect the company to be divided up or sold. They do not know you exist. If you want to claim your inheritance, you must learn to play the game before they realize you are in it. He walked to the door, then paused. Your father was many things, Brooklyn, but he believed in you. The question is whether you believe in yourself. He left. I sat alone in the presidential suite of the Four Seasons, holding my newborn son, staring at a photograph of a man I had never known, a man who had just made me one of the wealthiest women in America, a man who had given me the power to destroy the husband who had thrown me away like garbage. And for the first time since that door slammed in my face, I stopped crying. I started planning. The next 3 weeks were the most intense of my life. I did not become a CEO overnight. That is not how the real world works. But I learned. Hour after hour, day after day, I learned. Walter arranged for experts to tutor me in corporate finance, management structure, and board governance. I read financial statements until my eyes burned. I studied organizational charts until I could recite them from memory. I learned the jargon that powerful men use to intimidate people like me. The first week, I barely left the hotel suite. Noah slept in his crib while I reviewed spreadsheets and quarterly reports. I took notes on everything. I asked questions that probably seemed stupid, but that no one was too proud to answer. By the second week, Walter introduced me to 2 people who would become essential allies. The first was Ruth Mitchell, the chief financial officer of Vale Industries. She was a black woman in her 50s who had grown up in rural Tennessee and worked her way through state college. She had no patience for nonsense, and even less patience for people who wasted her time. The second was Marcus Cole, head of security for the Vale family. He was a former Secret Service agent, built like a linebacker with a calm demeanor that belied his lethal training. He was assigned to protect me and Noah around the clock. Ruth was skeptical of me at first. I could not blame her. She had worked her entire career to reach her position, and here I was, a waitress who had inherited everything through an accident of birth. Convince me, Ruth said during our first meeting. Convince me you are not going to run this company into the ground. I cannot convince you of anything, I replied honestly. I do not know what I am doing yet, but I know how to learn. I know how to work harder than anyone expects. And I know what it feels like to be underestimated. I spent 4 years being told I was not good enough
What
by a
were you
man
asking
who
me?
was not fit to shine my
So what are
shoes.
you getting for
I am done
Christmas?
being underestimated. Ruth studied me for a long moment. Fair enough, she said finally. Let us get to work. By the third week, I had undergone a transformation that went beyond education. A team of stylists gave me what they called an executive presence makeover. My hair was cut into a sharp professional style. My wardrobe was replaced with tailored suits and designer heels. I learned how to walk into a room like I owned it, because soon I would. I did not need to look like a model, I realized during one fitting session. I needed to look like someone who could fire you. Walter taught me something valuable during those weeks that I have never forgotten. He said that authority is 90% posture. Stand like you belong. Speak like you expect to be heard. The clothes and the hair and the shoes are just props. The
You guys
performance
stay
is in the
stacked as Miss
spine.
Stack's house
I
at the
practiced in the
barbecue.
mirror. I practiced in empty conference
That's what
rooms.
I'm talking
I
about.
practiced until my spine was steel. And through it all, I thought about Garrett. Walter had shown me the files his investigators had compiled. 3 affairs before Megan Cross. Expense reports that bordered on embezzlement. A pattern of manipulation and control that I could now see
That's
with
what I am
devastating
getting.
clarity.
A perfect gift.
But the worst discovery was yet to come. It happened during my second week of training. Walter arrived at the suite with an unusual expression on his face, something between anger and satisfaction. We found something, he said, something you need to see. He handed me a folder marked Garrett Hayes, confidential. Inside were emails, dozens of them. Correspondence between Garrett and a man named Victor Langston, a senior member of the Vail Industries Board of Directors. The emails dated back 2 years. Your husband has been in contact with Victor Langston since before your
Now
pregnancy,
seriously
Walter
though, I
explained.
don't know man.
Victor
I heard I've
discovered your
bought you some
connection to
stuff
Dominic
hidden in
Vail
one
through a
of the
private
closets on the spare
investigator he
bedroom.
hired to dig up dirt on his
Yeah.
business rivals. He saw an opportunity. I read through the emails with growing horror. Garrett knew, I whispered. He knew about my father before I did. Yes, Walter confirmed.
Yeah, me and the
Victor
wife
told him everything.
very rarely
They
buy
had a
each
plan.
other
Garrett was
anything
supposed to keep you
because
compliant and unaware, while Victor maneuvered to take
we
control of the
don't want to get a
company after
suspicion from
Dominic's
the
death.
kids because
They
we buy
assumed you would
stuff
never
all
learn
year
the truth,
long.
or that if you
But
did,
next
you would
year,
be too overwhelmed to fight.
I'm gonna
But Garrett
surprise the
kicked me
shit
out,
out of
I
you.
said, confused. If he knew about the inheritance,
I
why
wasn't
would he
gonna
get rid
do
of
it
me?
this year
Walter shook
because
his head grimly. Garrett did not fully understand the trust
we
structure.
we didn't
Victor
have it
told him that the
ahead
inheritance
of
was contingent
schedule.
on you remaining married for at
Like
least
how
1 year
had a
after
church
Dominic's death.
schedule.
Garrett believed that by divorcing you before the will was
We're not
executed,
gonna be here
he
for
would prevent you
Christmas.
from inheriting. He thought he was cutting you off from the money. He was wrong. He was catastrophically wrong, Walter agreed. The trust has no such provision. By kicking you out
Yeah,
and
well,
filing
you
for
know I'm
divorce before the will was read, Garrett established the date of separation as the night of the rain. That actually accelerated your inheritance. He gave up any potential claim to the money by his own actions. I let out a breath I did not realize I had been holding. So the man who tried to steal my inheritance, I said slowly, actually handed it to me on a silver platter. Poetic, is it not? Walter replied.
I told her
I
to
looked
just
at the
bust up
emails
some
again.
supplements from the
Garrett's
vitamin shop
words,
and maybe a
his
baseball
casual
set for Damon.
cruelty, his
Me and her are going to
calculations.
San Diego
He
next
never
week for
loved
three
me, I
days as
realized
part of
out
my
loud.
gift to her.
The words hurt more than
It's
I
not bad.
expected. He married me
So
because
what
he
are
thought I might be
y'all
useful
leaving for
someday.
San Diego
And when he
for?
thought I was not useful
Just to get
anymore,
away?
he threw me away. Walter did not try to comfort me with empty words. He simply nodded. The question now, he said, is what do you intend to do about it? I thought about the woman I had been 3 weeks ago, bleeding on a bus stop bench, begging for shelter, ready to give up my son because I could not protect him. I thought about the woman I was becoming, the woman my father believed I could be. I intend to destroy him, I said, but not yet.
Just to get away
First,
for
I need
3
to
days
secure
and
my
tear her to a
position.
nice
First,
little
I need to
vacation and
prove
break
to the
from
board that I
everything.
deserve to be there.
Nice.
Then when Garrett least expects it, I will take everything from him, just like he tried to take everything from me. Walter smiled. It was a thin,
Think
sharp
not fair.
expression. Your father would be proud, he
That's
said.
cool.
I looked at Noah, sleeping peacefully in his
Huh.
crib,
I hate to
unaware
admit
that
it.
his mother was planning a
Yeah.
corporate takeover and a personal vendetta simultaneously. My father was not a good man, I replied, but maybe he raised a good daughter, eventually. The headquarters of Vail Industries was a fortress of glass and steel in downtown Seattle, looming over the city like a modern cathedral. I stood in the lobby on the morning of the board meeting, wearing a tailored ivory suit that cost more than 6 months of my old salary at the diner. My hair was perfect. My makeup was flawless. My
You
spine
know
was
what sets
steel,
this build off the
but
most?
inside I was terrified.
That.
Ruth Mitchell stood beside me, holding a leather portfolio. "Ready?" she asked. "No," I admitted. "Good," she
Let's see
replied.
if you can guess what I'm
"Overconfidence
thinking.
is for fools. Let us go show them who owns this building."
Sets it off
We took the
for the
private
most.
elevator to the 40th floor. The doors opened onto an executive lobby decorated with abstract art and fresh flowers. The receptionist looked
Yes,
up, then quickly looked away.
Mm,
Word had
I don't
spread through the
know.
company that something unusual was happening today. The
aesthetically.
boardroom was cavernous, a mahogany table stretched across the center, surrounded by leather chairs. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the Seattle skyline. 8 board members were already
Uplifting
seated.
hands
I
to the
recognized
palm
Victor Langston
facility.
immediately from the photographs in my father's files. He was in his late 50s, silver-haired and patrician, with the smug expression of a man who had never been told no. He was about to learn. I walked in without waiting to be announced. Ruth followed. The conversation around the table died instantly. Victor looked up, his expression shifting from confusion to annoyance. "Excuse me," he said. "This is a private meeting. Who let you in?" I walked to the head of the table where my father's chair sat
There
empty
it is.
and sat down.
It's the attention
"The
to
deed to
detail
the
that they
building,"
added in with
I
the
replied
shrubbery and
calmly.
plants and stuff in
"I
front
own
of the
it."
house.
The silence that
Yep.
followed was
They did
absolute.
well.
Victor laughed, a sharp bark of disbelief. "This is absurd," he said, looking around at his fellow board members. "Security, can someone please remove this woman?" No one moved. I
They
pulled a
did very
document
well
from
though
Ruth's
for what those
portfolio and
two.
slid it across the table. "My name is Brooklyn Vale," I announced. "Maiden name Collins. Dominic Vale was my biological father.
I cannot
3 weeks
complain.
ago, I inherited controlling interest in this company,
I thought
51% of
you
all
did
outstanding shares.
well when I seen
These are
you.
my credentials. Verified by the estate attorneys and countersigned by Judge Patricia Coleman of the King County Family Court." Victor's face went pale, then red, then a peculiar shade of purple. "This is a joke," he sputtered. "Dominic never mentioned any daughter. This is obviously a fraud." I looked at him directly. "My father
The
mentioned
people
many
had
things,
just
Mr.
paid the house,
Langston,
but they added
including your
something they
recent
think is worth, which
correspondence
is
with a
really
man
cool.
named Garrett Hayes, my estranged husband. I believe you were planning to help him keep
And
me in
it's
the
not
dark
a
about my
really
inheritance
expensive
so you could
deal.
acquire
It's
controlling
about
interest in the company for yourself." The room went silent again.
around
This
three
time
hundred
the other
dollars
board
for a
members were
set.
staring at Victor. "I do not know what you are talking
It's
about,"
not like
Victor said,
terrible.
but his voice had lost its conviction. "I have emails," I continued, "dated over 2 years. I have records of payments you made to private investigators. I have evidence of your conspiracy to defraud me of my birthright. I am not here to prosecute you today, Mr. Langston. I am here to give you a choice." I leaned forward. "You can resign from this board quietly and walk away with your reputation intact. Or you can fight me and I will destroy you so completely that your grandchildren will feel the shame." Victor stared at me. I stared back. I had learned something important during my 3 weeks of training. Bullies do not expect resistance. They expect fear, submission, capitulation. When you refuse to give them what they expect, they do not know what to do. Victor did not know what to do. "This is not over," he finally said, pushing back from the table. "You have no idea who you are dealing with." He stormed out of the boardroom. I turned to the remaining board members. "Does anyone else have objections to my presence?" I asked pleasantly. No one spoke. "Good," I said. "Then let us discuss the future of Vail Industries." The meeting lasted 4 hours. I did not pretend to have all the answers. I asked questions. I listened to the responses. I deferred to Ruth on financial matters and took notes on everything else. By the end, the board had voted unanimously to confirm me as majority shareholder and chair. It was not because they liked me or trusted me. It was because
Did
they
this board
feared
come
what
with
would
any
happen if they
figurines?
opposed me.
Yeah, it's got
Fear
all
was a
of it.
useful tool. I was learning to
Yep.
wield it. That evening, I stood alone in my father's office, now my office, looking out at the Seattle skyline. Walter called with an update. "Congratulations," he said.
I'll get 'em out
"You
here
survived
for
your
you.
first board meeting." "Victor is
I'm
not going to
almost
go away
done.
quietly," I replied. "No, he is not. We have already detected unusual activity on his accounts. He is preparing a counterattack." "Good," I said. "Let him come. I want him to feel confident before I take everything from him. And Garrett? I smiled, though Walter could not see it. Garrett is a small fish, I said, but I have not forgotten him. When the time is right, I will deal with him personally. Walter was silent for a moment. Your father underestimated you, he finally said. We all did. Yes, I agreed. And now everyone who doubted me is going to pay for that mistake. I should have known that happiness would not last. For 2 weeks after the board meeting, things seemed to be going well. I was learning the business. The stock price was stabilizing. Noah was healthy and growing. I had even started to feel something resembling hope. Then Garrett struck. Walter called me on a Thursday morning, his voice tight with controlled anger. We have a problem, he said. Garrett filed an emergency custody motion this morning. He is claiming you are mentally unstable, that you abandoned the marital home, and that your sudden wealth proves you were hiding assets during the marriage. My blood went cold. He threw me out, I said. There was a doorbell camera. I can prove exactly what happened. He removed the hard drive before you left, Walter replied grimly. There is no footage. I sank into my chair, feeling the walls close in around me. The custody hearing was scheduled for the following Monday. Garrett's attorney was a woman named Catherine Blackwell, known throughout Seattle as the most aggressive divorce lawyer in the state. She had never lost a custody case. I arrived at the courthouse with my own legal team, confident that the truth would prevail. I had evidence. I had witnesses. I had the moral high ground. I was naive. Catherine Blackwell was brilliant and brutal. Ms. Hayes claims she was ejected from her home, Catherine said, addressing the judge. But she admits she left voluntarily. There was no police report filed, no hospital visit, no contemporaneous evidence of any abuse or mistreatment. I had just had surgery, I interjected. I was in shock. Catherine turned to me with a predatory smile. Convenient, she said. And now you have suddenly inherited $1 billion from a father you never mentioned during 4 years of marriage. Either you were hiding assets, Ms. Hayes, or you are fabricating this entire relationship for financial gain. That is not true, I protested. Then explain to the court, Catherine continued, why a devoted mother would spend the past 3 weeks in corporate board meetings instead of caring for her newborn child. Why she hired a full-time nanny. Why she prioritized a company over her own son. I opened my mouth to respond, but my attorney placed a hand on my arm. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s, reviewed the documents before her. This is a preliminary hearing, she announced. I am not prepared to make a final determination at this time. However, given the concerns raised about financial disclosure and maternal stability, I am ordering the following. Temporary joint custody, with the child residing primarily with the father pending a full psychological evaluation of the mother. Ms. Hayes will submit to the evaluation within 14 days and provide complete financial disclosure within 30 days. We will reconvene in 6 weeks. The gavel came down. I sat frozen in my seat, unable to believe what had just happened. Garrett walked past me on his way out of the courtroom. He paused just long enough to whisper in my ear, should have taken the $500, Brooklyn. I watched him leave with my attorney at my side. This is not over, she said. We will appeal. But for now, Garrett had won, and I had lost my son. That night, I sat alone in the Vale estate, surrounded by more luxury than I had ever imagined, and I had never felt more empty in my life. The nursery was silent. Noah's crib was empty. His toys were untouched. The mobile hung motionless above sheets that had been washed and folded by a staff that did not know what to say. I had everything, and I had nothing. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. The court filing was leaked to the media. Check the news. I turned on the television. Every channel was covering the story. Billionaire heiress, custody battle, shocking allegations. The narrative was already spinning out of control. Victor Langston had made his move. He was using Garrett as a weapon to destabilize me publicly while he maneuvered behind the scenes. I was being attacked from all sides, and I was running out of time. The next 2 weeks were the darkest of my life. It started with the lawsuit. Grant and Cameron Vale, my half-brothers, filed a challenge to the will on a Tuesday morning. Their claim was simple. I was a fraud. They alleged that my mother had been a con artist who seduced their father, that the DNA test proving my paternity had been falsified, and that I had no legitimate claim to the Vale inheritance. The media went wild. Vale Harris a fraud, one headline screamed. Mystery daughter may not be daughter at all, declared another. I was forced to submit to a new DNA test,
Yes.
an independent laboratory, supervised by court-appointed officials. The
Hold on,
results would take
Dad.
2 weeks. 2 weeks of uncertainty, 2 weeks of doubt, 2 weeks of watching my reputation crumble in real time. Then came the board meeting. Victor Langston had not resigned. Instead, he had spent the past month building a coalition against me. He had gathered evidence, he claimed, that I had been embezzling funds from Vale Industries. Account transfers, shell companies, documents with my signature. All fabricated, of course, but convincing enough to create doubt. I move for a vote of no confidence, Victor announced to the board. This woman is either a thief or an imposter. Either way, she needs to be removed. I looked around the room at the faces I had come to trust. Ruth Mitchell, the CFO who had mentored me for weeks. The other board members who had seemed supportive. No one met my eyes. Ruth abstained from the vote. The motion passed. I was suspended pending investigation. I walked out of that boardroom with my head held high, but inside I was shattered. Ruth caught up with me in the hallway. I am sorry, she said quietly. Victor has leverage on me, something from my past. I could not vote against him. I understand, I replied, even though I did not. I thought we were on the same side. We are, Ruth insisted, but I have to protect myself too. I did not respond. I walked away. That night, I returned to the Vale estate to find Garrett standing in my driveway. He was not alone. A police officer stood beside him, and in the officer's hands was a court order. What is this? I demanded. Emergency temporary custody, Garrett said with a smile that made me want to scream. The judge granted it this afternoon. You have been accused of financial crimes. That makes you a flight risk. I am taking my son. Noah was in the house with his nanny. I could hear him crying through the open windows. You cannot do this, I said. I have not been charged with anything. Take it up with the court, Garrett replied. The officer is just here to ensure you do not interfere. I watched, helpless, as they went inside. I watched as they carried my son out. I watched as Garrett loaded Noah's car seat into his vehicle. I tried to run toward them, but Marcus Cole, my security guard, held me back. Do not give them a reason to arrest you, he said quietly. That is what they want. I stopped struggling. I stood there in the driveway of my billion-dollar estate and watched my ex-husband drive away with my child. Garrett rolled down his window as he passed. You should have taken the $500, Brooklyn, he called out. I warned you.
Yep.
The taillights disappeared into the darkness. I collapsed on the ground and screamed. Later that night, I sat in the empty nursery. The crib was gone. The toys were gone. Everything that reminded me of Noah was gone. I was alone, no baby, no board seat, no allies. Everyone I had trusted had abandoned me or betrayed me. I thought about giving up. I thought about walking away from it all. The money, the company, the revenge. None of it mattered without my son.
Stack.
My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Check your father's private server. Password, Oakland Girl 1995, a friend. I stared at the message for a long moment. Then I wiped my tears, stood up, and went to find a computer.
Did you know?
If there was even a chance of getting my son back, I was going to take it. The private server was hidden in a room I had not known existed. Walter had mentioned it once, briefly, during my initial orientation. A secure facility in the basement of the estate where Dominic Vale kept his most sensitive files. I had assumed it was locked permanently, inaccessible without special clearance. The password worked. I spent the next 12 hours reading.
Did you know?
What I found changed everything. The first folder contained surveillance footage, videos from hidden cameras in conference rooms and private offices. Grant and Cameron Vale meeting with Victor Langston, not after my father's death, but 6 months before. We need to move carefully, Victor said in one recording. Once the old man dies, we take control. The daughter is irrelevant. She does not know she exists. She will find out eventually, Grant replied. What do we do then? We make sure she is discredited before she can act, Victor answered. I have contacts who can fabricate whatever evidence we need. I watched 5 more videos. The conspiracy was clear and documented. The second folder contained financial records, detailed accounting of $12 million that Grant had embezzled from a subsidiary company 3 years ago. The theft had been blamed on a junior accountant named Thomas Mercer, who was currently serving time in a federal prison for crimes he did not commit.
Never mind, I just
My
wanted to know
half-brother
if
had
you
sent
knew
an
and by
innocent
your
man to
answer, you
jail to
don't
cover his own
necessarily say
theft.
that you don't know
The
just
third
anything
folder
else you
was,
knew.
was labeled Garrett
Nobody
Hayes. I
broke.
opened it with trembling hands. Inside were more emails, more surveillance, more evidence of the plot to keep me ignorant and compliant. But there was something else, something I had not expected. An email from Victor Langston to Garrett, dated the night I was kicked out. It is done. She is gone. The inheritance will revert to the brothers as next of kin. Your payment will be processed within 30 days. Garrett had been paid, $30,000, transferred to an offshore account in the Cayman Islands. My husband had literally sold me. He had taken money to throw me and our newborn son into the
That's
rain.
awesome.
I sat back in my chair, feeling something cold and hard crystallize in my chest. I had thought I understood the depth of Garrett's betrayal. I had been wrong. This was not just cruelty. This was a transaction. He had calculated my worth in dollars and decided I was not worth keeping. I looked at the files spread out before me. Evidence of conspiracy, embezzlement, bribery, and fraud. Enough to destroy Victor Langston. Enough to send Grant and Cameron to prison. Enough to bury Garrett so deep he would never recover. But I could not do this alone. I needed allies. The next morning, I called Ruth Mitchell. I know Victor has leverage on you, I said when she
That's
answered.
so cool.
I know about the work retreat 7 years ago, the photographs. There was a long silence. How did you find out? Ruth finally asked. My father kept files on everyone, I replied. But here is what matters. Does your husband know? Another pause. He does now, Ruth said quietly. We worked through it. It was a mistake. I have moved past it. Then Victor has nothing, I said. The only power he has over you is your fear of exposure. If you are not afraid anymore, he cannot hurt you. Ruth did not respond immediately. What are you proposing? She finally asked. I am proposing that you help me take down Victor, Grant, Cameron, and Garrett. I said, all of them. I have evidence that will destroy their careers and probably send them to prison. But I need someone on the inside to verify the financial trails. I need you, Ruth. The silence stretched. I am in, Ruth said finally. Send me what you have.
Look at
I will
that.
make sure the accounting is airtight. I hung up and immediately called Marcus Cole. I need you to find someone for me, I said. My sister Dana. I do not have her current number, but I know she divorced her husband 6 months ago. She sent me a message. She was the one who told me about the server. I will find her, Marcus confirmed. That afternoon, my phone rang. An unknown number, I answered. Brooklyn? It was Dana, my sister, the one who had disappeared, the one whose phone had been disconnected. Dana, I breathed. Where have you been? I am sorry I disappeared, she said. My ex-husband was a controlling psycho. Sound familiar? Unfortunately, I replied. I divorced
So
him
he
6
just
months
played
ago,
closed or open?
Dana continued. He got the house. I got the satisfaction of keying his car. But I have been watching you. When I saw what was happening with Garrett, I had to do something. I still have access to some of Dad's old accounts. He set me up as a backup administrator years ago, in case something happened to him. You sent me the password. Yes, Dana confirmed, and I have more. I have been tracking Victor's communications. I know what he is planning next. He is going to hold a press conference tomorrow to announce the results of the board investigation. He is going to claim you embezzled $15 million and recommend criminal prosecution. I closed my eyes. Then we need to move faster than him, I said. Can you help me? Dana laughed. I have been waiting years for a chance to take down the people who hurt our family, she said. Tell me what you need. The DNA results came back 2 days later, 99.97% confirmation. I was Dominic Vale's biological daughter. There was no doubt, no ambiguity, no room for challenge.
Only missing
Grant and
Nick.
Cameron's lawsuit collapsed immediately, but that was just the beginning. I called an emergency board meeting for Friday morning. Victor Langston arrived looking smug, clearly expecting to deliver the final blow that would remove me permanently. He did not know what was coming. I walked into the boardroom with Ruth Mitchell on one side and a team of forensic accountants on the other. Good morning, everyone, I said pleasantly.
Damn.
Before we proceed with Mr. Langston's presentation, I have some new evidence to share. This is highly irregular, Victor protested. The agenda has already been set. The agenda has changed, I replied. I nodded to Ruth. She began distributing folders to each board member. What you are looking at, I said, is documented evidence of a conspiracy to defraud me of my inheritance and seize control of Vale Industries. The participants in this conspiracy include Mr. Victor Langston, Mr. Grant Vale, and Mr. Cameron Vale. Victor's face went white. Specifically, I continued, you will find surveillance footage of meetings held before my father's death in which Mr. Langston and my half-brothers discussed how to discredit me and divide the company among themselves. You will find financial records showing that Mr. Grant Vale embezzled $12 million from a subsidiary and blamed an innocent employee who is currently serving time for crimes he did not commit. And you will find correspondence between Mr. Langston and my strange husband, Garrett Hayes, proving that Mr. Hayes was paid $30,000 to remove me from my marital home and prevent me from learning about my inheritance. The room was absolutely silent. This is slander, Victor said, but his voice was shaking. I will sue you for defamation. You are welcome to try, I replied calmly, but I should mention that copies of this evidence have already been sent to the FBI, the SEC, and the Washington State Attorney General's office. Mr. Cole? Marcus stepped forward. Mr. Langston, he said, federal agents are waiting in the lobby to speak with you. I suggest you go peacefully. Victor looked around the room desperately. No one would meet his eyes. He stood slowly, his face gray with shock. This is not over, he said. Yes, it is, I replied. 2 security guards escorted him from the room. I turned to the remaining board members. Is there any objection to reinstating me as chair? I asked. The vote was unanimous. That afternoon, Grant and Cameron Vale turned themselves in to federal authorities. Their lawyers negotiated plea deals in exchange for testimony against Victor Langston. An innocent man named Thomas Mercer would be released from prison within the week. But my work was not finished. I still had to deal with Garrett. I called Ruth that evening. The custody hearing has been rescheduled, I said. The judge is reviewing the new evidence. She is going to reverse her previous ruling. That is excellent news, Ruth replied. It is, I agreed. But I need something else. I need to know where Garrett is going to be tomorrow morning. I have a plan. Ruth hesitated. What kind of plan? The kind that ends this, I said, permanently. Garrett chose to make his last stand on live television. I should not have been surprised. He had always craved attention, validation, the spotlight. Even now, with his schemes crumbling around him, he could not resist the opportunity to perform. He appeared on a morning news program with Noah on his lap. My son, used as a prop in his desperate attempt to control the narrative. I am not the villain here, Garrett declared to the cameras. Brooklyn Hayes abandoned her family for money. She prioritized a corporation over her own child. And now her own company is under criminal investigation. Is this the kind of mother who should have custody? The anchor, a woman named Jennifer Walsh, leaned forward with practiced concern. Those are serious allegations, Mr. Hayes. Do you have evidence to support them? Garrett smiled his most charming smile. I have something better, he said. I have her son, and I am not giving him back until she admits what she really is. A fraud. I watched the broadcast from the green room of the same television station. I had arrived 15 minutes earlier and spoken privately with the producer. I had evidence, I explained. Evidence that would make for compelling television. Evidence that the public deserved to see. The producer, smelling ratings gold, agreed to give me airtime. When Garrett finished his monologue, Jennifer Walsh looked directly into the camera. We have an unexpected guest joining us now, she announced. Brooklyn Hayes has arrived at the studio and would like to respond. Garrett's smile faltered. I walked onto the set and sat down across from him. Noah, my beautiful son, was asleep in his lap. He did not stir. Hello, Garrett, I said calmly. Brooklyn, he replied, recovering his composure. Come to admit defeat? I came to give you a choice, I said. Hand Noah to the studio assistant and walk away. No charges, no public humiliation. You just disappear. Start over somewhere else. Forget any of this ever happened. Garrett laughed. And why would I do that? He asked. I have leverage. I have your son. You are going to give me what I want. And what is that? Half, Garrett said. Half of everything. Half of the money, half of the company, half of your father's estate. You owe me, Brooklyn. I put up with you for 4 years. I deserve compensation. I nodded slowly as if considering his offer. Here is the problem with that, I said. You are not in a position to negotiate. You think you have leverage, but you do not. You have evidence. What are you talking about? I leaned forward. I know about the emails, Garrett. The ones between you and Victor Langston. The ones where you discussed keeping me in the dark about my inheritance. The ones that prove you knew about my father
What's
before
the
you threw me
giveaway? I
into
have
the
to
rain.
down Lifetime movies
Garrett's
and
face
check the
went
app.
pale. I know
Yeah.
about the $30,000, I
I'll show you.
continued.
I'm fixing to do
The
it.
payment you received for getting rid of me. You did
This
not kick me
is
out
a
because you were
Christmas
unhappy.
present.
You kicked me out because
The
Victor told
rules
you I was about
state
to inherit a
that
fortune,
and
and he
I
paid you to
will
prevent that from
present
happening.
before the
That is
game.
insane, Garrett stammered. You
This
have
is
no
what the
proof.
rules
Actually, I
state.
do, I
Next
replied.
time we do
I have
one,
bank
we
records,
will
account
have
numbers,
a
transaction
little
dates.
different.
Everything is documented. I looked directly into the
Absolutely
camera.
good. But
So here is
this
my
is how the
question for you,
rules
Garrett.
read this
Live,
time.
on national television, in front of millions of viewers. I pause for effect. What is the
This is how I
password to your
read. I
offshore
have no
account in the Cayman
messages, so
Islands?
nobody's messing
Garrett
with
stopped
me.
breathing. Because my father knew it, I
Okay,
continued.
so
He documented
the
everything.
rules
And if you
state
do not hand me my son in the next 30 seconds, I am going to read that password out loud. And every forensic accountant and federal investigator in the country will start digging.
giveaway
They
rules
will find
are
the
as follows.
$30,000. They will find the tax
You have to
evasion.
be present
They will
for
find
all
everything. The
24
silence
days
stretched. I
of
watched
that
Garrett's face as he
calendar period
calculated his options.
to
He was not a
all
smart
of.
man, but he was
And
cunning
you
enough to
also
recognize
check
a
in with
losing
me with the
position.
mods in the stream.
20 seconds, Garrett, I said
Your
quietly.
name
He
will be
looked at
written
Noah.
down
He
each
looked at me.
day on
He
the
looked at the
whiteboard.
cameras,
There will be a
recording every moment of
randomize
his humiliation. Then
with the
slowly he stood up.
names, and the
He
winner
handed Noah to the
will
studio
get.
assistant. This is not over, he muttered as he walked off set. Yes, it is, I called after him. And it was. The months that followed brought justice and closure. Garrett was arrested for tax evasion, conspiracy to defraud, and custodial interference. His offshore accounts were seized. His reputation was destroyed.
That castle.
He eventually accepted a plea deal that included 2 years in federal prison and permanent relinquishment of parental rights. Megan Cross, the woman who had worn my grandmother's robe,
I'm also
quietly moved
giving
to
away
another
a
state when the
small
scandal broke. I never heard from her
R-rated deal,
again.
which it did not
Victor
have.
Langston, Grant Vale, and
Okay.
Cameron Vale all faced criminal charges. The innocent man, Thomas Mercer, was released from prison
Again,
and
but
received
this
a
is only
substantial
available
settlement
for
from the Vale
on
Family
Twitch,
Trust. I stood in my
the
father's
other
office 6 months
platforms,
after the
or
television
all that
confrontation,
shit.
holding Noah in
So,
my
with
arms.
that being
He was
said,
growing so fast, already
congratulations,
smiling,
Maria.
already reaching for
You
things
were
that
the
caught his
only
attention.
one
Walter
out
Ashford
of
stood beside
all the
me,
people that
looking
were
out at the
making
Seattle skyline.
all 23
Your
days.
father would be
What about
proud,
the
he
advent
said.
calendar?
My father was not a good man, I replied. He abandoned
What
me.
about the
He
advent
abandoned my
calendar?
mother. He built an empire but failed to build a family. Walter nodded.
Yeah,
That is true,
yeah.
he agreed, but he recognized his failures at the end. He tried to make amends the only way he knew how. By giving me power. By giving you a choice, Walter corrected. What you did with that power was entirely up to you. He hoped you would use it wisely.
Oh,
And you
Top
did.
Dad was second place.
I looked at Noah, who
Can I
was
claim
reaching
this
for a strand of
appearance?
my hair. I learned something through all of
I was
this, I said.
second place.
Something important. What is that?
Why?
That the people who underestimate
Oh,
you are
second
giving you an
place.
advantage. They do not expect you to fight back. They do not expect you to be strong. And when you prove them wrong, they do not know what to do. Walter smiled. And what will you do now?
Did you miss
Now,
a
I
day,
said, I
Maria?
build something better.
The advent
Not just
calendar
a
for second
company,
place.
a legacy,
Yes.
something my
Do
son
that
can be
now.
proud of. A package arrived that
So,
afternoon.
being the
No return
yeah,
address.
I know.
Inside was a
It's
USB
you're
drive.
the only
I plugged
one,
it in,
and I
expecting another
appreciate it.
piece of evidence from my father's investigations.
Also,
Instead, I found a
now
video.
I
Dominic
am
If
Vale
you like
appeared
the
on
stream,
screen, filmed
subscribe to
clearly in the
a
final weeks of his
giveaway
life. He looked
for
tired but peaceful.
second
Brooklyn,
place.
he said,
Okay.
if you are watching this, you
Second
have
place
survived.
will
Good. Now the real
be
test begins.
for
I told you
everyone
that your
that has
brothers
been
each
here
received $50 million
periodically.
in
Dad,
shares in
I plead the
specific
fifth.
subsidiaries. What I did not
Yes.
tell you is that those subsidiaries are
Third
failing.
place gets the
On
advent
purpose.
calendar
Grant and
deal.
Cameron do not know it,
Okay.
but their inheritance is designed to
Second
You will
collapse
find
within
this long
5
to make
years.
sure.
I stared at the screen. They will come to you eventually, my
Well,
father
I
continued,
appreciate it. Like I
asking for
said, I
help,
mean, I can't,
begging,
I
and you will
can't
have a
go
choice.
off of,
Save
and
them
now I
or
know
let them fall.
people were saying
I leave
I
that
didn't get
decision to you.
notifications,
He
things
leaned
like
closer
that.
to the camera. But know this, I
The
gave you the
Blue
empire
Flames
not
weeks
because
to
you are
this
my blood,
giveaway
but because you are the only one who earned it. The rest was always yours to build. The video ended. I sat in silence for a long moment. Then I looked at Noah, sleeping peacefully in his crib. "Mommy has work to do," I said softly. I thought about everything I had been through, the betrayal, the rain, the despair, the moments when I had wanted to give up. And I thought about what I had learned. They tried to bury me. They did not know I was a seed. The story ends here, but my life was just beginning. If you have ever felt thrown away, remember this. The people who underestimate you are giving you an advantage. They expect you to fail.
How
They
many
expect
pieces
you to
does that make?
surrender. They expect you to disappear. Prove them wrong. And if you enjoyed this story, please smash that like button and subscribe for more tales of justice served cold. Until next time. And that is how a homeless mother became a billionaire, and how the man who threw her into the rain ended up begging for mercy he would never receive. But here is the real lesson. Brooklyn did not win because she inherited money. Money was just a tool. She won because she refused to stay broken. She won because she turned her pain into power and her tears into strategy. She won because the man who underestimated her gave her the one thing she needed most, a reason to fight. They tried to bury her. They did not know she was a seed. So if you are going through your own storm right now, if someone has made you feel worthless or disposable, remember this, your chapter is not over. The people who hurt you have not seen your final form, and revenge, served cold and calculated, tastes better than anything they can imagine. Now, I have a question for you. What would you have done in Brooklyn's position? Would you have taken the quiet settlement and walked away? Or would you have burned it all down like she did? Drop your answer in the comments. I read every single one, and the best responses might inspire our next story. And if this story hit different, if it made you feel something, do me a small favor. Hit that like button. It takes half a second, but it tells the algorithm that stories like this deserve to be heard. Share it with someone who needs to hear that their storm will not last forever. And if you are not subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? We drop stories like this every week. Tales of betrayal, justice, and sweet, satisfying revenge. You do not want to miss what is coming next. I will see you in the next one.